Welcome to tutorial 4.2 Euthanasia. I'm Dr. Sarah. So what's the difference between euthanasia and assisted suicide? Euthanasia is the act of deliberately ending a person's life to relieve suffering. So for example, it could be considered euthanasia if a doctor deliberately gave a patient with a terminal illness an overdose of muscle relaxants to end their life. Assisted suicide is the act of deliberately assisting or encouraging another person to end their life. If a person or a relative with a terminal illness obtains strong sedatives, knowing that the person intended to use the sedatives to kill themselves, they may be considered to be assisting suicide. So what are the types of euthanasia? We have voluntary, non-voluntary, active and passive. In voluntary euthanasia, the competent patient voluntarily decides to die and asks for help. In non-voluntary, the person is not competent to give consent. For example, they are in a coma, but another person decides to end their life, often due to a previous request. Active euthanasia is deliberately intervening to end their life, for example, injecting an overdose. And passive euthanasia is withholding or withdrawing treatment, for example, turning off life support, stopping a feeding tube, or not giving life-extending drugs. Is passive euthanasia the same as withdrawing life-sustaining treatment? It's important not to confuse passive euthanasia with withholding or withdrawing life-sustaining treatment in the person's best interest. Withdrawing life-sustaining treatment, because it's in the person's best interests, can be part of good palliative care and is not euthanasia. For example, if a patient is declining on a ventilator and isn't going to survive, a decision might be made to stop treatment in the patient's best interests. So let's look at euthanasia in different countries. We'll run through an activity now, match up the countries to the policies. Active euthanasia is legal in Belgium, Luxembourg, the Netherlands. Active euthanasia is illegal, but assisted suicide and passive euthanasia are both legal in Switzerland, Germany. Active euthanasia and assisted suicide are both illegal in the UK. In the UK, it is illegal for doctors to deliberately end a patient's life, euthanasia, or to assist with death, assisted suicide. However, withdrawing treatment is legal and is used as part of good palliative care. So how do you approach the euthanasia debate in interviews? Let's run through some pointers to help you. Firstly, don't be too strong. The debate is very controversial, so it's better to explain points without being too strong or erratic about one side of the argument. Next, give a balanced argument. Discuss the points for and against. Also, talk about the 4 pillars of medical ethics. Use the pillars of autonomy, beneficence, non-maleficence, and justice. Also, case studies. Look up a case study about a patient who's travelled abroad for treatment. This also shows that you're keeping up to date with medical news. Mention that it isn't straightforward. The principle that the debate is complicated and has a lot of grey areas is really important and means that this is not a straightforward issue and means that this is not a straightforward answer. Next, use the law. As we've said, active euthanasia and assisted suicide is illegal in the UK. You could also talk about the Hippocratic Oath. This states that doctors should do no harm. Whilst many would argue that the oath is outdated, it's still important to know that this goes against it. You could also talk about the Mental Capacity Act. A patient may lack competency and mental capacity to make this decision. If euthanasia was legalised, weigh up, retain and communicate decisions, it could put patients who are vulnerable and not able to understand, retain, weigh up and communicate decisions well into jeopardy.